In here, South Africa's vaccination program can best be described as moving at a glacial pace, despite the country having the worst mortality figures in Africa. Government has had to push back its target of injecting 40 million South Africans. That's about two-thirds of the population by December to March next year. Critics say, had officials planned better, millions of South Africans would be vaccinated by now. Well, we're joined by Vaccines for Africa Research Officer, Dr. Benjamin Kajina. Dr. Kajina, good evening to you and thank you for your time. When one speaks to government officials, one certainly gets the sense that even though there is an acknowledgement that the vaccine rollout is not taking place at the pace that it should, but by and large, government blames things that are outside of its control for where the country is today. Is that a fair assessment of why we only have close to 2 million vaccines or people vaccinated right now, when it should have been much more than that?
Well, good evening to you and to your viewers. Some of the reasons the government has provided are justifiable because, for example, vaccine availability, the supply has been constrained not just to South Africa, but to many other countries. But I'm talking more at the initial phases of the vaccine rollout. But obviously there are other factors, for example, planning ahead, waiting for the kovacs facility as the main platform to access vaccines for the country was probably not a good idea because when the government realized that it needed to agree with vaccine suppliers as a bilateral agreement, then things started moving. So it's a combination of factors beyond the government control, but also I think government should take responsibility of some things that could have been done better in hindsight.
Of course, you talk about the kovacs facility. We've heard very little of it, even though, you know, it was initially promulgated as what would be the main driver of access to vaccines, not just in South Africa, but on the rest of the continent as well.
Yes, I think kovacs facility was a huge initiative that created a lot of hope and rightfully so. But I think subsequently the delivery of vaccines to the countries and the equity aspect, which was the main pillar that kovacs was founded for, has really not come to the fore because countries waiting to get vaccines from kovacs are the countries that are not doing well in terms of vaccines rollout because they don't have the vaccines. So countries realize that relying on kovacs alone is not going to be sustainable. They have to really get out and engage with the manufacturers so that we could get additional supplies. And I think it has been recognized globally that, you know, kovacs started well, but they are having some hiccups. And at least I'm hoping that some authorities are trying to make the facility work better.
Do you get a sense that our state of planning is different to what it was before? And just this idea of putting our eggs in one basket and hinging our hopes perhaps on the kovacs program or even on the Pfizer and the Johnson & Johnson vaccines and perhaps not spreading our net much wider?
Yeah, certainly. I think spreading the net wider is much more sensible, but the challenge is you need resources to do that. And, you know, we are in a setting where resources are usually scarce in most cases, especially for healthcare system. You've had, our health system has had a huge disruption because of COVID. And resources are a key challenge that not only South Africa, but many other African countries are facing. But I just want to also highlight that in addition to vaccine supply and procurement, there are other factors that, you know, were beyond government control. For example, the emergence of new variant, which obviously threw the plan for vaccination of the rail. Remember, there was AstraZeneca vaccine which had to be shipped out because it couldn't be used after discovering the new variant, which is a beta version. Then recently you heard about suspension of Johnson & Johnson vaccines because of contamination issues. And all these things usually have caused huge delay in terms of vaccination rollout. So it's a combination of factors beyond government control, but also there are many other things that, in my opinion, I think government could have done better and can do better.
Do you think that we are there yet at the place where government is doing better, where the lessons have been learned?
Not to the optimal level that we would want to, and that's why in your introduction you say that our vaccination rollout is going at a snail's pace. For example, the issue of EVDS, the electronic vaccine data system, there has been a lot of hiccups with the system, and government has admitted to that. And we know that there is a substantial number of population in South Africa that may have a problem accessing or using the system. So the government has tried to get some health workers to assist people to get registered with EVDS. But again, there is also the issue of trained workforce. Do we have sufficient trained workforce to administer these vaccines at a large scale, which is what is needed at the moment? So I think those are some of the factors that I think much more need to be done by the government, and consider, another way, in addition to AVDS, to get people registered and get vaccinated.
Vaccinologist at Vaccines for Africa Initiative, Dr. Benjamin Kajina, let me thank you so much for your time tonight.